Whether it's to the future or to the past, many people would love to time travel. It's surprising to know that a lot of people in history have actually traveled through time. So, from two journalists who predicted an air raid to an attorney claiming he was part of a secret time travel project, we count down 4 cases of time travel. Number 4. Abbeville Time Slip Incident. In the spring of 1988 issue of Strange magazine, Ken Moe shared a remarkable tale about a time slip incident that occurred on Highway 167 north of Abbeville, Louisiana. It happened on October the 20th, 1969. A man revealed by Ken only as LC and his business associate Charlie were driving down Highway 167 at about 1:30 in the afternoon. It was a cool but comfortable day, so they had their windows rolled down. After driving for a while, they noticed a very old turtleback car traveling in the next lane over. They pulled up alongside of it, matching its speed. It was mint, they said, with an orange license plate dated 1940. They thought perhaps that it was off to a car show, or maybe it belonged to a collector. What was truly strange, however, was its driver. A young woman, also appeared vintage. She wore 1940s attire, and there was a child in the passenger seat. Same deal, 1940s clothing. Their confusion turned to urgency when they realized the young woman was in distress. As Ken described, she appeared on the verge of tears. This prompted LC to ask the woman through her rolled-up window if she needed help. She nodded yes, so he motioned her to pull over and she nodded again. LC and Charlie then drove in front of her and pulled over to the side of the road. But when they turned to look back at the woman and her old car, expecting her to pull up behind them, she had seemingly vanished. They were all alone. At that moment, another car pulled up behind LC and Charlie. Its driver jumped out, himself panicked, asking what had just happened to the car in front of him. From his point of view, it had simply blinked out of existence. They talked for a moment, then searched in a daze for an hour. The woman and her car were simply gone. Elsie and Charlie wanted to keep the event a secret, while the third man felt that they should report the incident. Number 3. Andrew Basiago. Andrew Basiago claims that during the time he was 7 to 12 years of age, he was a time traveler. He claims that he participated in Project Pegasus, a teleportation and time travel project led by a secret United States government program. He said that they trained children along with adults so they could test the mental and physical effects of time travel on kids. He also said that children had an advantage over adults in terms of adapting to the strains of moving between past, present, and future. As with anyone Basiago tells his story to, people are skeptical and ask for proof. The proof he provides is a photograph of Abraham Lincoln from 1863, in which he can supposedly be seen. He continues to claim he actually teleported to Gettysburg in 1972 via the time-traveling machine. The machine consisted of 2 grey elliptical booms about 8 feet tall, separated by about 10 feet, between which a shimmering curtain of what Tesla called radiant energy was broadcast. Radiant energy is a form of energy that Tesla discovered that is latent and pervasive in the universe and has among its properties the capacity to bend time-space. Alfred Webre, a US attorney, backs Basiago's claims and says that time travel is in fact very possible and that the US government has been using it for nearly 40 years. Number 2. The air raid. In 1932, newspaper reporter J. Bernard Hutton and photographer Joachim Brandt were assigned to do a feature story on the Hamburg, Germany shipyard. They drove to the huge complex, interviewed several executives and workers, and completed the assignment by late afternoon. As they were leaving, the 2 newsmen heard the unmistakable drone of aircraft engines and looked up to see the sky filled with warplanes. Then they heard the city's anti-aircraft batteries opening fire as bombs began exploding around them. Moments later, the area was a raging inferno as fuel tanks were hit. Warehouses were collapsing from high explosives, and dock cranes were twisted into pretzels. Hutton and Brandt realized this was no drill. They rushed to the car as anti-aircraft gunners began scoring hits on the bomber formation overhead. At the gate, Hutton asked the security guard if there was anything they could do to help, but was told to leave the area immediately. Hutton and Brandt were confused when they drove into Hamburg. The sky had turned dark during the attack, but now it was clear and the city was serene. The busy streets were not indented with craters and the buildings were still intact. No one seemed concerned as they went about their daily business. Hutton and Brandt stopped the car and looked back towards the shipyard. Now they received another shock, because they saw no black ribbons of smoke rising into the sky and no damaged buildings. Back at the newspaper office, Brandt's pictures were developed and the two men got another surprise. Brandt had continued shooting film throughout the air raid, but his photographs showed nothing unusual. The shipyard looked as it did upon their arrival that morning. There was no evidence that a rain of bombs from enemy planes had destroyed the area as they had witnessed. The editors studied the photographs and wondered why Hutton and Brandt insisted they had been involved in an air attack. He dismissed their story and decided that they had probably stopped at a tavern for a couple of drinks on the way back to the office. Just before World War II began, Bernard and Hutton moved to London. In 1943, he saw a newspaper story about a successful raid by Royal Air Force Squadron on the Hamburg shipyard. He felt a cold shiver along his spine as he studied the photos. The scene of destruction was exactly as it appeared during his visit with Brandt in the spring of 1932. There was only one thing different, and that was that Hutton and Brandt had witnessed the event 11 years before it had happened. Number 1. Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. On August the 10th of 1901, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, both academics at St. Hugh's College in Oxford, were spending a day at Versailles. As they searched for the Petit Trianon, they became lost. They began to feel strange, like something was oppressing their spirits. Two men in long green coats and three-cornered hats directed them across a bridge where Moberly saw a woman in an 18th century clothing sitting on a stool, sketching. Back in England, the women investigated the mystery. Neither of them knew anything about 18th century France, so imagine their astonishment when they discovered a picture of Marie Antoinette and saw that it was she whom Moberly had been sketching. The Queen had been sitting outside the Petit Trianon at the very moment she learned a Parisian mob was marching towards Versailles. The women were convinced they'd experienced a ghost trace of Marie Antoinette's memories. Under fictitious names Miss Morrison and Miss Lamont, they both published an account of their experience called An Adventure, which became a bestseller. It wasn't until 1950, by which time Jourdain and Moberly were both long dead, that an examination of their correspondence with the Society of Physical Research proved that the women had added numerous details to their account, only after they had done their research. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, make sure to tune in again tomorrow for another brand new episode.